بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. صلوات.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى إن إلى ربك رجعا أرأيت الذي ينهى أبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى أو أمر بالتقوى أرأيت إن كذب وتولى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى كلا لئن تنته لنسفا ناصية كاذبة خاطية فليدع نادية سندع الزبانية كلا لا تطعه واسجد واقترب. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان في خسر إن الذين منوا وعاملوا صالحات وتواصوا بالحق وصوا بالصبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي يا أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغدتيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي ورسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه. يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أماه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه. السلام عليك يا جداه. السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله. أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمته قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عم رسول الله. فقلت نعم ما هو مع ولد وهو هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا صي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائه قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا بتاه يا رسول الله. أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا بنتي يا بضعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم، مسلم لمن سالمهم، وعدو لمن عاداهم، ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئة ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكسام. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، علي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بتحية والإكرام، ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا كمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. قد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا مهين وهي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكسام، فقال لأبيه إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وهفت بهم الملائكة بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيهم جمع من شيعتنا ومحبين وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وكفى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وصعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. صلوات.
Assalamu alaikum, elders and friends. My name is Mehdi, and today I feel blessed to say a few things about the life of Hazrat Abbas al-Islam. Though we can spend years and years talking about the qualities of Hazrat Abbas al-Islam, but due to shortage of time at hand, I'll touch base only on few things like Hazrat Abbas's strength of faith in Almighty Allah, his sense of honor, and above all, Al-Abbas's patience. Hazrat Abbas al-Islam is also known as Bab al-Hawaj, which means the door to the settlement of needs. And I feel Hazrat Abbas well deserves to be Bab al-Hawaj, given the fact that he was the man of strong faith in Almighty Allah. Hazrat Abbas al-Islam was son of Mawla Ali and Bibi al-Baneen. He was younger brother of Hasnan and Bibi Zainab. Al-Abbas got the strength in his faith since his birth. He was guided in his life by Mawla Ali and Imam Hussain al-Islam. His faith in Allah grew stronger and stronger every day until the day of his martyrdom. Hazrat Abbas was so bright-faced and handsome. He was called Qamar-e-Bani Hashim, which means moon of the Hashimis. He was an honorable man, which is reflected throughout his life. But the biggest example of his honor and duty can be seen when, after capturing the banks of river Euphrates, Hazrat Abbas had the opportunity to drink water and quench his thirst. But he didn't, as he knew the kids and women and his beloved Imam were also thirsty. He only filled the water pouch to carry it back to the tents for Bibi Sakina and others who had hopes on Abul Fazl Abbas to bring back water. Hazrat Abbas has been famously called as Sher Khuda ka Sher, a sentence which you don't need any translation. In this crowd, Imam Ali al-Islam, who was the bravest and the most skilled warrior of his time, trained Hazrat Abbas al-Islam. When Hazrat Abbas came of age, he had the reputation of a fearsome, brave, and just warrior. On the day of Ashura, Hazrat Abbas was a young, brave man who had the ability to win the war on his own. But he patiently saw all of the friends and family members of Imam Hussein go to their respective shahada because Imam Hussein al-Islam didn't give him permission to fight. It must have been so difficult for Hazrat Abbas al-Islam to control his instincts and watch his near and dear ones attaining martyrdom when he could have easily annihilated Yazid's army. As I mentioned above, there are many qualities of Hazrat Abbas on which we can spend our lives discussing. But above were few which I thought of sharing with you from my point of view, and I hope that we'll try and attain some of these qualities and implement them in our lives. We must never forsake our faith, even in the most difficult of times. We must always maintain our honor, especially in the most difficult especially when we have nothing at hand, and we must exercise patience and understand that just because of the fact that we can do something to someone else, we should not do it unless it is for the right reason and just cause, for which I pray to Almighty Allah to unveil our Imam Zamana to guide us and lead us soon, inshallah, for the early zuhur of Imam Mehdi al-Islam. Please recite the loud salawat and please invite Muhammad Ali. Thank you before listening.
Salawat. हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी पाँव में है आबले और आबिलों में खार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी आँख में आंसू और जख्म जिगर में होठों पे रिदा कानों हाकर मुबला से है शाम तलक हूँ कांटों पे सफर करता था बेरिदा सैदानिया उस पर सितम बाजार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी देख के जैनब सजाद की हालत फरियाद यही करती थी मेरा यकीन है ईमान है मेरा ऐ शाम के बेकस कैदी रोएंगे तुझ पर सदा मसनद भी और दस्तार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी बैठ कहीं पर जब तक के मुसाफिर 40 शबों का जागा नींद जो आई बेकस कैदी को दुर्रों से जगाया जाता देख कर रोया फलक और ज़ैनबे लाचार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी देखने वाली आँखों ने देखा उस राह में ये भी जंजर एक मुसाफिर पाबंद सफर है खुद अपनी लाश उठा कर ये इमाम में वक्त है और काफिला सालार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी नोह गुनाह है इरफान और मजहर तारीख मकातिल सब ही आल पैगंबर और शाम की गलियां शबीर का बेटा कैदी क्यों न हो मैं वे फुगा किरदास भी अशार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी हो सलाम उस पर के जो कैदी भी है बीमार भी सलवात
I would now like to invite Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi to address the Majlis tonight. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. There is a correlation over having mastery over oneself and controlling one's life. If I have control over my nafs, I have control over my destiny and my direction in life. And in fact, it's a prerequisite to any achievement. Recently, I had one of the youth contact me. He wanted to take upon an apprenticeship. And at this time of the year, we're nearing the end of the school year, I said to him, finish the school year. He said, why? I said, because if you begin from this time of your life doing things without completion, for the rest of your life will be incomplete. So if I don't finish this school year and complete this, then when I take on an apprenticeship, you met those people that says, oh, I did 2 years as a carpenter, 3 years as a plumber, 1 year as a paver. So what do you end up doing? You know, I'm a jack of all trades. I can do everything. But they have no accomplishment because from the outset, they had no control over themselves to finish a task. In fact, you know, when we learn about doing something completely and properly, we learn this from when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You better put the phone in your pocket. Sorry, I'm speaking to someone related to me, just for the record. All right. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, if I don't do something completely and properly in a way where I have full control of myself, it won't be done properly. And that's when the Prophet was burying his son Ibrahim. Do you know, after he was buried him, he was fixing the grave. And they said, what are you doing? You know, usually you're mourning after this. And he said, Rahimallah mri'in. May Allah have mercy upon a person that does something for atqana, and he does it properly. So even if it's a grave, I make sure it's rounded off, squared off properly, leave it to that point. Let us examine any achievement, a big achievement or small achievement, from writing a pamphlet to discovering uncharted land. These people that set off to do this are people that had control over themselves. They have to have this self-control. Because if they don't have this self-control and they do not have this control and command over themselves, they could not achieve these accomplishments. One experiment that you'll find if you look up, it's called the marshmallow experiment, where they show you how people act when you told them to control themselves. And you can work out pretty much where people are going to end up with something like this, where they say to a child, here's one marshmallow. You can eat it now, or if you wait 10 minutes or whatever time they give them, you can have 2 marshmallows. Some kids will eat the marshmallow immediately. And you know, these are ashab dunya, people that will cash is better than credit. And some will wait for that second marshmallow. They're the people that you know achieve great things. The people that, and you know that when you're teaching someone, you know when someone comes into one of the things that the seminary does, the Hawza does, or Islamic studies, is they'll break your spirit from the start. Do you know what they do? They break your ego, not your spirit. It's not martial arts. They'll break your ego from the start. How? Even martial arts used to be like that. Now martial arts, everyone's all about belts and grading. Back in the old days, the master, you know, just to give you, it's similar because it's a discipline. I think it was Sheikh Ali Qurani. He was talking about when he went to study. The way they used to study, it wasn't like you turn up at the Hawza and everything is honky-dory. The old days it was even different. He said he turned up to one of the ulama's house and said, I want to learn from you. And he said the alim was just sitting in the backyard and said, all right. And there was a bit of Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso relationship. What he did is he said, all right, first I want you to go into my backyard and take out all the stones out of the garden. You know, in Lebanon, a lot of the gardens are full of stones, not weeds. Remove them all. I want the fields to be without any of the big stones. And he said, for 6 months, this alim was just making me do errands in his house. Because you can't learn unless I break your ego. You have got to have that command over the soul. And that's why even the seminary, you know, the first thing they teach you are basic things. One of the first books they teach you is Munyat al-Murid, which is a book about akhlaq and how to respect your teacher, how to be respectful, how to have good manners. Because you need to control yourself. You know, sometimes you want to teach someone a basic book. They say, brother, I know this. You want to teach me wudu? I will teach you wudu. That's right. You're not good for the hawza. Go back home. You're not ready for this. You need to be able to learn to have hilm. You know, sometimes someone's telling you a story. One of the worst things you can say when they tell you a story is, I've heard this story before. Because they'll tell you the story from an angle you never saw it before. And you say, wow, I missed out. That's why at school you have some educators that were so good at teaching, you know, that people actually, like, imagine like people that are studying physics. Like if you had someone like Richard Feynman as your physicist, you would have actually enjoyed the class. Because the guy will explain waves and particles in 5 minutes better than your teacher did in I don't know how many lessons. They know how to explain it because they have a style. And sometimes that's why I need forbearance. I could be sitting with a scholar that has got gems of wisdom and he's about to allow me to understand this. So I need to have this mastery over myself. It is proportional. If I have mastery over myself and the accomplishments that I will make. The problem is people never advance because they are so full of themselves. In the world we live today, they are taught to be like this. Now, one of the things I like to do if I'm called in for one of my kids doing something at school, once I took all their merit certificates, take the merit certificates, you know, because they give merit certificates for anything these days. My son got an award for putting his hand up. And I looked at that and I go, you serious? You're now giving them an award to do what they're supposed to do. You know? He went to the toilet and he washed his hands. He's an award. It's ridiculous. So I take all these merit certificates because the word merit means what? It's something that's been accomplished. So if something is meritorious, it's something that's been acquired and gained through struggle. So when I come in and they say, look, your child hasn't been listening in class. I say, well, I'm oblivious to this. Why not? I've got a stack here next to me that begs to differ what you're about to say. It says my child is an A student. In fact, my child in kindergarten has more awards than I had in my entire school year. It's a fact. So no one knows what accomplishment is anymore. No one understands what I have to do to gain something. In fact, we always shift the blame. This reason, you know, when people tell me, poor upbringing, it's not always the case. Bad schools, it's not always the case. They say, yes, it is, but sometimes it's not. How? Which school did Qabil go to? Who were his friends? Who were his parents? The only person around him was Habil, salamullah alayh. His father was Adam, salamullah alayh. His mother was Hawa, salamullah alayha. There was also Iblis, who's there all the time, doesn't leave us. Always, you know, like the friend that hangs around like a bad smell. One of those that never leaves you alone. So the thing is, why do we not take the blame to begin with? Why does the atheist always blame God? You ever noticed? It's always God's blameworthy. The funny thing about this is whenever I used to debate with an atheist, I used to say, do you hate Santa Claus? And they say, no. I say, do you hate the Easter Bunny? No. Do you hate God? Yes. Does God exist? No. I said, but Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny are both figments of your imagination. And you don't hate them because you know they don't exist, but you hate God. So you know He exists. And in fact, you blame God for everything. And even when you press them, like when Richard Dawkins was pressed, what would you do if they give you evidence of God's existence? See, I'm not saying he isn't an accomplished biologist by any means. I'm just saying he's an imbecile because he doesn't believe in God. And I think I've given him too much credit by calling him an imbecile. When you don't believe in God, you have no intelligence whatsoever. So when they press him and they said, what would you do if you had evidence where you could not turn back? He said, I would still not believe because I hate him. The audacity to show that he knows God exists. Why does the emo blame their parents for everything? Why is it the fingers always turn around? Why do we never point the finger in this direction? When corruption's from man, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. The corruption has spread in the land, it's spread in the sea, in every single way. If you look at when they sit there, I love when they do water restrictions and everyone thinks, oh, it's a great thing. I said, brother, did you know how much water waste is from residential? It's only an iota, a drop in the ocean from industrial water waste. In fact, to make a schooner of beer, they waste about 10 liters of water. Just one schooner. But God forbid we talk about their God. The breweries, the most important person in Australia. Because this is the most important thing, to the point that this is their life, this is their lifestyle, this is their discussion that they have wherever they go. Corruption is from mankind. We should not be asking why is there evil in the world and blaming God. Instead, we should be asking, why does man commit so much evil? That's the question. This is where you begin before you move forward. I've got to blame myself. Begin with myself. Just got to keep an eye on the time here. Why is it when someone stays the night at a luxury hotel, they're inclined to pack that towel that they see that looks so good inside their bag? Why is it someone will pick up an item, or say if they see a large amount of money or an item or a phone or jewelry from the ground and pocket it if no one is watching? Why is it people will commit an indecency if they know that they would not be scrutinized by the public? Why? Why do people steal? Why do people lie? Why? Because it's a test. Because they have a choice. They have a choice to decide to do this or not. And there's no compulsion in the matter. La ikraha fi din. Allah has given you this freedom to choose. Because if Allah did not give you this choice, then the angels would be right. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءِ. You want to place therein on the earth whoever would corrupt this earth and would shed blood. وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. We are your worthy creation. If Allah did not create man with intellect and choice, then if there's no choice, there is no test. If there's no test, there is no difference. And there's no way for someone to increase in value. They remain what they are. We have a choice to be good. We have a choice to be evil. When it came to any crime, or when it comes to any crime, the problem is blaming and recognizing. When I'm doing marriage counseling, or so, it's not marriage because I'm not marriage counselor per se. I'm talking about religion, religious guidance. You'll never see a person come in and say, listen, here's what I do to my wife. Or she walks in and says, here's what I do to my husband. It's always he did this or she did that. I'm the good one. I'm the angel. She's terrible. You know? Sometimes you'll hear them say, oh, my better half. And they're trying to say it with humility. But in reality, everyone thinks I'm so awesome. But everyone else is blameworthy. Even if you look at Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous is what? Is to acknowledge you have a problem. You can't just turn up and say, have you noticed what's the first thing they say? My name, okay, is John Doe and I'm an alcoholic. That's the first thing they say. Why? Because he's admitting what he is. We don't have this in Islam where you admit to people. You admit to Allah Azza wa Jal. We don't have a confessional. And the reason why we don't have a confessional in Islam, I lost that piece of paper. The reason why we don't have a Muhammad, wow. Astaghfirullah, Sayyid. Thank you so much. The reason we don't have a confessional in Islam because you're confessing to who? Another sinner, another human being. You're talking about, what's it called? What the Imam says, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, he says, Salamullah alayhi, he says, Kayfa yas'alu muhtajun muhtaja. How does someone in need ask someone else in need? You're in need, I'm in need. How do I ask someone else that's in need? I turn to God. I have a problem, I confess to God. I don't sit there and leave the Sheikh with a database on who's good and bad. He's not Santa Claus. He doesn't have a nice and naughty list to work out who's right and who's wrong. Who is he to make that decision? Allah Azza wa Jal has that premier decision. Because Allah Azza wa Jal is not a human like the Jews and the Christians and some sects in Islam may make you think. Allah Azza wa Jal is beyond our way that we can even describe and understand, which we'll get to later. Just a point. Last night I suggested that I was speaking about a certain point, but I've changed my points completely for the 3 nights. I usually look at the crowd and I see what I need to do, but because there's a lot of younger people, to go into the discussion of slavery and that is a bit too technical, and for that you have to always address the crowd you're speaking to. Otherwise, I'm talking to just a set group of the crowd rather than address everyone that is present. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So I need to own my misdeeds and not pass them off. I need to say that I did wrong, al-i'tiraf, because this is the only way I can pass the test. Yazid ibn Muawiyah, when he realized that everything was coming against him, he passed the buck. He said it was Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad that did all this. When he realized it was wrong, he didn't own it. You've seen tyrants, that's what they do. When tyrants kill anybody, they don't say, listen, this person was a righteous man and that's why I killed him. You ever seen when Saddam was taken into prison and he was being interrogated? They said, why did you kill this alim? He said, Bawag. He was a thief. He was a rebel. You know? The word, and if you notice, even I was telling my son as we were driving here, I said, I never use the word terrorist. And he said, why? I go, because I'm a terrorist. According to the Westerner, if I do a crime, I'm a terrorist. If a white man does it, he's mentally incapacitated. But I'm a terrorist. That's the way that they define me. I go, it's just a word. And these jargons used all the time. When a Muslim dies, he was killed. When an American soldier dies, he lost his life. Read this. When a militia supports the West, it's called what? A resistance. When a militia is against the West, it's called an insurgency. The terminology is very specific. So when they refer to those against the government, they call them rebels. Rebellion. And the thing is, this is an honor for us. That's why when someone calls you Rafidi, you're happy. So I am dignified, I'm ennobled, I'm honored to say I rejected the kingdom and the false Khalifa of the usurpers. I'm proud of that. Call me Arafa, this is an honor for me, that I reject what is evil. So there, Yazid and his like would refer to these people as rebels. And then Ubaydullah bin Ziyad was the first one to be blamed with this. One of the things that takes place in order sometimes to take the self-blame is another thing people do is victim blame. Now, is victim blaming right or is it wrong? Some people might say, no, it's absolutely wrong. This new age world will tell you it's absolutely wrong. It depends on what it is in Australia. I'll tell you. If it's an inanimate object that you own, they blame the owner of that. For example, if you leave your car unlocked, windows open, can you be given an infringement notice? Go park your car and leave your windows open and walk away from the car. Go over 5 meters away. If a policeman sees it, he will give you an infringement notice. Do you know why? Because you're enticing someone to steal the car. Did you know that? But if a woman is provocatively dressed, she is expressing herself, her freedom. Once again, which freedom of speech does not exist. This is the biggest fallacy. You're free to speak what we tell you you can say. So what is victim blaming? Victim blaming is when you actually blame someone for something that happens to them. Like if you saw someone poking a hornet's nest and the hornets came out and started stinging them, would you say this poor guy? Or would you say, you know, we have a saying in Arabic, say, if you knock on the door, you're going to get an answer, a response. So this person's poking a hornet's nest, he's going to get stung. If you see, for example, someone flying with their car and they have a car accident, do I sit there and blame like everything else? No. This is the person's fault. I don't say poor person. It's my fault when I do this. But if an incident takes place where I had nothing to do with it, I was forced. It was forced upon me. And this is what has happened as the second thing when it comes to the killing of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Some people even went to the point where they blamed him. Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi says, أن الحسين خرج على إمام زمانه فقتل بسيف جده. The Imam Hussein walked away from the Imam of his time, turned away from the Imam of his time, went against the Imam of his time, Yazid. So he was killed by the sword of his grandfather. Ibn Taymiyyah also adopts this opinion. This opinion to say, let's say Imam Hussein wasn't Imam al-Hujjatullah al-Khalq. Let's say the Imam wasn't Sayyid Shabab Ahl Jannah. Let's say he was a normal person. Read the story. Did he go to get killed? Imam Hussein, if he was going for getting killed, they tried to kill him in Mecca. He left Mecca. Isn't that right? He went to Kufa because he had support there. The Kufans turned on him. Did he go to Karbala and stay, or was he forced to remain in Karbala? He was forced. Does that sound like someone that even to the point, what did he say? And another point that they use, and I'll get to that point, is not only do they blame him, they blame who? They blame the Shia. They say the Shia killed Imam Hussein. And that's why they beat their chest, because they are guilty of this and they can't remove this guilt. These are all the problems that exist when it comes to blaming the actual victim. When you're blaming someone that's not blameworthy. But otherwise they are. Honestly, have you ever watched a video where you see someone jump, or seen something where someone jumps into an enclosure for lions? Or you see someone poking the lion? How many times do you get upset when the lion mauls them? No one gets upset. You say you're in their territory, or you see these people that want to. I saw once there was a video of a humpback whale that was floating in the waters, and there was a feeding frenzy for great white sharks. And one highly intelligent individual, got up and stood on the whale, and he stood there, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I can't wait till he slips. Why? Because I sit and think, what goes through your head? Man eating sharks, I'm going to stand there. Or those people that take selfies in the worst possible places. What goes through their minds? What encourages them to do this? Do they actually think when people see you take this selfie, they think you're awesome? One guy was telling me that he takes his car out for a cruise and he does burnouts and that. I said to him, imagine you're the person on the footpath watching the guy doing a burnout. What do you think of him? And he says, I think, what an idiot. I said, precisely. That's what everyone's thinking when you do that. That's what you need to think. So you put yourself in this position. Al-Muttaqun, the righteous, the God-fearing. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi says, وَهُمْ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ مُتَّهِمُونَ, that they to themselves are muttahimun. They're self-blaming. The God-fearing, the righteous blame themselves. They always look at themselves. You're bad. You're not that worthy. They keep themselves grounded. This is the mastery of yourself. Now the question comes in where they say the Shia killed Imam Hussein. Yes, the Shia killed Imam Hussein, but not the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Shia killed Imam Hussein. What does Shia mean? Followers. Let's ask Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who was responsible for his killing. He says on the day of Ashura, Ya Shi'at al Abi Sufyan. He says who killed him. And this is where he tells them, this is proof that he's not there to die. In lam yakun lakum deen, wala takhafun al-ma'ad. You have no religion. You do not fear the day of judgment. Because if you have religion, I am the religion. The Imam is the religion. He says, فَكُونُوا أَحْرَارًا فِي دُنْيَاكُمْ. Be free. Go. You don't want to enter the fire of hell through me. Go. This isn't someone that's there to be killed. But if it means that I have to be killed, then so be it. And this is where we mentioned last night the role of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zayn al-Abidin in educating the people. And this is why we have Majalis. People ask, why do we congregate? Why do we sit and have these Majalis? We need to give people proper education, proper understanding, because most of the education you're getting is what? It's education that's made to indoctrinate you to be a perfect citizen that works the government system and does not what? Is not rebellious as they use. You're not insubordinate. That you recognize that we're not as bad as the United States, where you actually give tahiyyah to the flag first thing in the morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. This is how they begin their lessons. This is how they begin their lessons. But we don't have this. At least we're not there yet. It's going to get there. We'll probably be pledging allegiance to the rainbow flag very soon. So anyway, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam left us a great legacy. And that was a Sahifa Sajadiyya. Sahifa Sajadiyya is one of the best sources of Islamic relics that we have. In terms of eloquence, education, ethics, and literature in Islam. It's unmatched. In fact, some people call it the sister of the Holy Quran. In another thing, it's called the Gospel of Ahlul Bayt. Other opinions about it, it's called the Psalms of Al Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. It is so important because it was composed in one of the most terrible times for the Muslims, where Islam was totally devastated and was devoid. To give you an idea of what Islam was like at that time, and I'm going to try and be very subtle with my words. One man came into one of the governorates. He walked in and he saw a vineyard next to a mosque, and the people were crushing grapes outside. He said, "What are you doing?" They said, "We're making wine." He said, "Next to the mosque?" They said, "Yeah, the vineyard's owned by the mosque. This is how we maintain the mosque, with the wine that we sell." This is the type of era that you were in at the time, Mums and Abidin. So when he walks in to pray, he finds the Imam can't even stand up. He's had a long night the night before, He's thrown over a few too many. A bit of an elbow bender, the Imam was. The one leading the prayer. Imam Taban, the one leading the prayer. So he prays Salat al-Subh and he prays it 8 rakat. 8. After he finishes and he can barely stand, he asks him, "Salat al-Subh kam?" He said, "You just prayed 8 rakat." So his advisor says 2. He said, he didn't accept 8. He's not going to accept 2. This is the type of people they didn't even know. So when he goes to complain to the magistrate in the area, and this is where I'm going to be subtle, he finds, you remember those in Afghanistan, they had those bazi, the young boys, the dancing boys. Yeah, if you look, don't Google it. But anyway, what happens is he walks in, he sees the magistrate, he's got a young boy, the pre-adolescent boy, just about to become a man. And he's actually trying to discern whether the person has reached puberty or not. You understand what I'm trying to say? So he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "We need to see if this person is baligh, so we can see if he's mukallaf to do his prayers and fasting." This is the type of era that the Imam was around. This was Islam. And you imagine Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's ISIS utopia was in full swing. So anyway, and they were busy forming the political parties, and the Imam took advantage of this with the Sahifa to teach. It is narrated with over 56,000 authorities. That's how strong Sahifa Sajjadiyya is. Number one, the Imam teaches in this book fundamental things that were forgotten to escape the material world. Because this is why a lot of people have mental health issues today. Do you know why people have so many mental health problems? Because when they lose their job, their idea of their work is eternity. They think this is my rizq, this is the doorway for my sustenance, and not Allah. So when they lose their job, they fall apart. When their wife leaves them, or their girlfriend in these cases, you see them commit suicide. It's the end of the rope for them. That's it. So the Imam taught us in these to escape the material reality. It also allowed you to understand the knowledge of the Imam. Because when you read the du'as, the things that are mentioned, you are overawed. Just when you open from the very beginning. Alhamdulillah, al-awwal, bila awwalin, kana qabla. Al-awwal, bila awwalin, kana qabla. The first that has no first before him. Sometimes you want to rack your brain over this, honestly. Sometimes people try and use the example of infinity. But infinity is what? It doesn't exist. Infinity is merely a concept. I'm about to say something that's going to rattle people's brains. Numbers have a beginning and an end. Infinity, even Dr. David Hilbert, who is probably the father of modern mathematics, it's a German mathematician, he says that infinity is an idea. It's a concept. It's not actually a reality. And even like Albert Einstein said that two things have no limit. He says the human stupidity and the universe. He says, although I have my doubts about the latter. In other words, he says the universe has limitations, but human stupidity doesn't. But everything in creation has limitations, yet the Creator is azali. Allah is the first. What that means is beyond your understanding. Because our understanding is first, is we start thinking binary. That's how we think. We think first, we think no value, value. That's how we think about God. That's wrong. That's why I say, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ وَاحَدْ. No, ahad. Allah's not wahad, so you can say ithnain. Allah, ahad. Allah is unique. Well, this, you think that mind boggles you? The second one blows my mind. He says, وَالْآخِرُ بِلَا آخِرٍ يَكُونُ بَعْدَ. And Allah is the last, and there's nothing after him. So I sat there and I thought to myself, hold on. Those that go to paradise, أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ هُمْ فِيهَا. What does Khalid mean? Eternal. They're there for good. So hold on. If we're there forever, that means we're not going to die. Aren't we the last? No. Allah is after. What does that mean? I don't know. This is what the Imam is teaching. Right from the start. This God that these people have said is 60 foot long. That's what they say. 60 foot long, this God. Wears sandals, has golden locks, looks like a young boy, but don't talk about his private parts. That's what they actually say. If you want to look at him, puts his foot in hell on the day of judgment because the hell wants to eat more people. So he feeds it his foot. So he ends up with peg leg Pete. You know, I don't know how they come up with the idea of what he ends up looking like. The Imam explains what God is there. What he actually says, then the next point is even more amazing. الذي عجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. So every idea that you have in your head, every imaginative thought, every figurative thought, every anthropomorphic, when I say anthropomorphic, is when you link something to God. You know, for example, when you think God is a man, they call that anthropomorphism. When you try and say God is, you relate Allah to human qualities. That's anthropomorphic. So all these are eliminated. Why? Because everything you understand is what? Is limited to what you know. You know, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You explain it as you understand it. That's why when you look at people that have NDEs, you know, near-death experiences, they say some things that blow your mind. They say, I saw colors that I cannot describe. That's what they say. Many of them. And you have a lot of people say, I saw colors that I cannot describe what they were. But they were colors. But I can't say what they were. Something out of the spectrum. It's like trying to explain what a tesseract is to someone. Trying to speak about the fourth dimension. You can't, because we can't describe it. Like I was saying to someone, I was talking about entropy, for example. Entropy, you can understand it, but try and teach it to someone. I had to watch like 5 videos, and I ended up buying a Stirling engine while I was watching the videos because I saw one in it, but I still didn't know how to explain it. I know what it is. There's concepts you can't even explain. They're that difficult. Imagine talking about the Creator. When the Yahudi asked Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he said, in what direction does your God face? Amir al-Mu'mineen said to Salman, light a fire. He lit a fire, And he said to the Yahudi, he said, in what direction does the fire face? So the Yahudi looked and said, I don't know. He said, this is but a creation, and you don't know what direction it faces. You can't understand the Creator. It's beyond your understanding. How are you going to understand this? So the Imam brought this about and taught us to be humble towards Allah. Humility when you're dealing with God. Show penitence when you deal with God. And if you look at the way the dua is done, you know, one of the things, when people try and talk about the essence of God, you think, man, these people are nuts. The Imam himself in Munajat al-Dhakirin, you know what he says? I'm going to say it in plain English. I'm kind of paraphrasing, not verbatim. He says basically, if you didn't tell me to remember you, I wouldn't remember you. You know why? Because who am I to even mention you? The Imam is saying this. And then you have someone tell you, oh, God is this, God is that. And he'll start explaining what the Creator is. Who are you? If Ali ibn al-Hussein, salawatullahi alayh, Sayyid al-Sajideen, Zain al-Abideen, says, I would not even mention you because I'm not worthy to mention you. Who are you to say this? He gave us arguments for forgiveness. Notice, look at when you're reading dua, it gives you arguments for forgiveness. Sorry, I've stayed a bit long, but it's a Friday night. Excuse me. You know what he says? And I love this part in the dua. You know when you read in dua, Abi Hamza Thamali. One of the sheikhs told me it's dua Qumel on steroids. Dua Abi Hamza Thamali. When he says Ilahi, he says, أنزلت في كتابك العفو. Did you send down in your book for us to forgive? وأمرتنا أن نعفو عن من ظلمنا. You commanded us to forgive whoever oppresses us. وقد ظلمنا أنفسنا. We have oppressed ourselves. فاعف عنا فإنك أولى بذلك منا. You told us to forgive. We have sinned against ourselves. So forgive us because you are the one commanding. In other words, this is what you're preaching. Practice it first. You do it. Look at the way the Imam teaches you to show you can have a personal relationship with Allah. وَأَمَرْتَنَا أَنْ لَا نَرُدَّ سَائِلًا عَنْ أَبْوَابِهَا وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Don't turn anyone from your door. وَقَدْ جِئْتُكَ سَائِلًا فَلَا تَرُدَّنِي إِلَّا بِقَضَاءِ حَاجَتِي. That I've come to ask you, do not turn me away until you've fulfilled what I've asked for. This is why when someone says, I want to go visit the Imam and ask, I tell them, when you're going there, you're going to someone with infinite capabilities. You're going to the rope that links to the heavens. Don't ask expecting it might happen. Go with full strength. You're at the place. This is where you have to go, in that direction. And finally, he says, وَأَمَرْتَنَا بِالْإِحْسَانِ إِلَى مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُنَا. You told us if we have a servant, slave, to be good to them. وَنَحْنُ أَرِقَّاؤُكَ. We are your slaves. فَاعْتِقْ رِقَابَنَا مِنَ النَّارِ. Save us from the fire of hell. The Imam taught us about how to seek forgiveness and how anything can happen with this, to purify our souls. And he gave the remedy for the perplexed soul, teaching us the Majalis of Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. That when you come, you sit down, you can have any musibah. Every musibah becomes nothing when you think of Abdullah al-Hussein. Everything becomes nothing. Everything has no value. In one of the incidents when Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam, when they paraded in Sham, they brought into Sham, and one man comes and says, Alhamdulillah alladhi qatalakum. And then he says, وَقَطَعَ قَرْنَ الْفِتْنَةِ. Praise be to Allah, the one that killed you people. and was able to end this fitna, end this corruption that you people have done, the trouble that you have done. So Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam, listen to him. He listened to what he was saying. And then he said, Ayyuha Sheikh, oh you Sheikh, oh old man, we have listened to you. He said, فَقَدْ نَصَدْتُ لَكَ حَتَّى أَبْدَيْتُ. He says, فَقَدْ نَصَدْتُ لَكَ حَتَّى أَبْدَيْتَ لِي عَمَّا فِي نَفْسِكَ مِنَ الْعَدَاوَةِ. He said, I listened to you until you said what you had against us. And then he says, now listen to me. Listen to what I'm about to say to you. He says, هَلْ قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنِ. He said, did you not read the Quran? And the Sheikh says, نعم. He says, هل وجدت لنا فيه حقا خاصة دون المسلمين. Did you find any right for us other than Muslims in the Quran? And the Sheikh says, no, I didn't. La. Then the Imam says, ما قرأت القرآن. You did not read the Quran. So then the old man says, بلى قد قرأت القرآن. I did read the Quran. And then the Imam says, فما قرأت الأنفال. Did you not read Surah Al-Anfal? He says, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمْسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَذِي الْقُرْبَى أَتَدْرُونَ. He says, then he says, أَتَدْرُونَ مَنْ هُمْ. He said that Allah says that whatever you acquire, whatever you gain, that a khums of it is for the Rasul, for Allah and the Rasul and the Qurba, the relations of the Prophet. He said, do you know who the relations of the Prophet are? And the man said, we are. The man says, no. And the Imam says, we are the relations. We are. The Imam's teaching him because a lot of people don't know. When you come up and tell them, they don't understand. So when he understands and he learns from this, he said, Allahumma inni atubu ilayk. He says, Allahumma inni atubu ilayka min qatli ali Muhammad wa min adawati ali Muhammad. Then he turns back to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah Azza wa Jal forgives him in this moment. My dear brothers and sisters, when we come to these majalis, we understand we are carrying so many sins. We have such a great weight. But I want to ask every single one of you present here, who of you sentenced the Imam to death? Who of you sentenced Ali Akbar to death? Who of you sentenced Abu Fadl Abbas to death? None of you have done anything like this. Al-Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi was the one that prevented the Imam from leaving the plains of Karbala. He's the one that made sure that the Imam remained there. He's the one that apparently was the cause of them being killed. He is the one that was the cause for them to be paraded through the streets. Yet when he came back to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, this is what you need to know. And he looked down and he said, هَلْ لِي مِن مَتَابٍ. Is there any forgiveness for me? The Imam didn't turn and say, you did this and you did that. He said, in tubta fatab Allah alayk. If you repent, then Allah will forgive you. Then Hur turned and said to the Imam, can I be the first one to fight and die in your way? So Hur went, and when Hur went to fight, he fought so valiantly. And then eventually he was struck on the head. And he called out to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Aba Abdullah alayka minni salam. The Imam rushed towards him. He could see the blood gushing from his head. How favorable is it for Hur? The Imam Hussein would tie a rag around his head, a cloth, to make the bleeding stop. And he said, your mother was truthful when she named you Hur. Because you were free, you're all free. Anta hurrun fi dunya wa sa'idun fil akhirah. You are free in the dunya and you made the right choice, and therefore you are happy in the hereafter. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal bihaq al-Hur, and the fact that Allah forgave al-Hur, that no one leaves this center that except their sins are forgiven, that you do not even have a speck that you will be accountable for on the day of judgment. My dear brothers and sisters, we have one of the brothers asked me to read the verse that is known, Amma Yujib, for Sayyid Azhar al-Hasan Bukhari. And for all the sick people that you are related to, and anyone that's asked you dua, you all know someone that's sick. You all know someone that's suffering. So we're going to read the verse for them 5 times. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمن مضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء، أمن يجيب المضطر 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 إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. يا الله 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 يا الله. يا حميد بحق محمد، ويا عالي بحق علي، ويا فاطر بحق فاطمة، ويا محسن بحق الحسن، ويا قديم الإحسان بحق الحسين، والتسعة المعصومين من ولد الحسين. اشف مرضانا يا الله، اغفر ذنوبنا يا الله، ارحم موتانا يا الله، لا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا يا الله. عجل لوليك الفرج، عجل لوليك الفرج والناس، واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه ومن المستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وناصرا ودليلا حتى وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت، وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام وعلى ورحمة الله وبركاته والأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والأرواح موتانا وموتاكم، ولقضاء الحوائج وقبول الأعمال وشفاء المرضى وغفران الذنوب وتعجيل الفرج وحسن العاقبة. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
मिटने को है जहां से तस्वीर मुस्तफा की, काबू में अब नहीं है हालत शहे खुदा की।
काबू में अब नहीं है हालत शहे खुदा की।
नजदीक बस अजल है, कुछ लम्हा रह गया है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
आऊंगा मैं ना वापस, उसको भी ये पता है, मकतल से बाप को वो मुड़ मुड़ के देखता है।
मकतल से बाप को वो मुड़ मुड़ के देखता है।
हसरत से बाप भी तो बेटे को देखता है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
ये वक्त में जमाए भाई पे है निगाहें, अकबर की ले रही है ये दूर से बलाएं।
अकबर की ले रही है ये दूर से बलाएं।
वो खाक करबला पे करवट बदल रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
अर्शे बरी से तारे हसरत से तोड़ती है, अकबर के वास्ते वो लड़ियों में गूंदती हैं।
अकबर के वास्ते वो लड़ियों में गूंजती है।
उसको नहीं खबर थी नेज़ा उसे लगा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
राहों में जिसकी सुगरा शम्मा जला रही है, दिन रात ही दिल में दूल्हा बना रही है।
दिन रात दिल ही दिल में दूल्हा बना रही है।
वो एड़ियां जमी पर भाई रगड़ रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शबीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
जिसके लिए मचलती
है सोच कर ये सुगरा बांधूंगी एक दिन में भाई के सर पे सहरा।
बांधूंगी एक दिन में भाई के सर पे सहरा।
वो तो अजल का रन में सहरा पहन चुका है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शब्बीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
फर्जंदे नौजवां के लाशे पे जाके मौला कुछ सोचते हैं दिल में, रोते हैं शाहे वाला।
कुछ सोचते हैं दिल में, रोते हैं शाहे वाला।
कहते हैं चांद मेरा खून में नहा चुका है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
शब्बीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है।
अम्मार ये बहन से ऐ काश कोई कहता जिसका पिरो रही है तू हसरतों से सहरा।
जिसका पिरो रही है तू हसरतों से सहरा।
बांधेगी किसके सर पे अकबर तो मर चुका है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है। शब्बीर का वो बेटा मरने को जा रहा है, सुगरा वतन में जिसका सहरा सजा रही है। या हुसैन,
या हुसैन, हुसैन, या 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 हुसैन।
सलातु वस्सलाम अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह या खैर खल्क़िल्लाह या रहमतल लिल आलमीन। अस्सलामु अलैकी या खदीजतल कुबरा या उम्मुल मुमिनीन। अस्सलामु अलैका या अलील मुर्तज़ा अमीरुल मुमिनीन। अस्सलामु अलैकी या फातिमतज़ ज़हरा सय्यदतुन निसाइल आलमीन। अस्सलामु अलैका या हसनुल मुज्तबा इमामुन नासिहुल अमीन। अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन वअला अली इब्नुल हुसैन वअला औलादिल हुसैन वअला अस्हाबिल हुसैन अजमईन। अस्सलामु अलैका अली इब्नुल हुसैन ज़ैनुल आबिदीन। अस्सलामु अलैका मुहम्मद इब्न अली अल बाक़िर इल्मुल अव्वलीन वल आखिरीन। अस्सलामु अलैका जाफ़र as-सादिक़। अस्सलामु अलैका या मूसा इब्न जाफ़र अल-काज़िम। अस्सलामु अलैका अली इब्न मूसा ar-रिज़ा। अस्सलामु अलैका मुहम्मद इब्न अली अत-तक़ी। अस्सलामु अलैका या अली इब्न मुहम्मद अन-नक़ी। अस्सलामु अलैका या हसन अल-अस्करी। अस्सलामु अलैका या साहिबल अस्र वज़्ज़मान। अलमान 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 मिन फितनिज़ ज़मान। अस्सलामु अलैका या खलीफतुर रहमान सय्यदी अज्जलल्लाहु तआला फरजक व सहलल्लाहु तआला मखरजक व ज़हूरक या साहिबज़ ज़मान अदरिक या साहिबज़ ज़मान अदरिक या साहिबज़ ज़मान अदरिकनी। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला।
Inshallah, English Majalis will continue tomorrow. Tomorrow night, English Majlis venue is in